Welcome. I am Justin Otto, and this is Dharma Junkie. On this episode, I talk to hypnotist and Reiki healer Lance Baker. We talk about the recent outbreak of vampirism in Australia, which is something that I just made up because it's not a real thing. So if you were looking forward to that, I'm sorry to disappoint, but don't be so gullible. We do talk a lot about Reiki healing and hypnotism, though. We also touch on past life regression hypnosis and the interesting characters that you can meet. So stop digging that grave in your backyard, or begging on the street, or sleeping on the couch, or whatever you're doing right now, and welcome, Lance Baker.
You might catch yourself sliding in and out of a hallucinatory state. Just relax and enjoy it. Just relax and enjoy it.
This is an experiment in mind formation. Information. Forming, controlling, operating your mind and your brain. We're using digital techniques to overload, scramble, confuse, unfocus your mind. The natural state of the brain is chaos. Chaos is beautiful.
So how's it going, man? Doing all right?
Yeah. Had a pretty good day. Getting on top of things.
That's always preferable to the opposite.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, for sure. So for everybody that is possibly listening that obviously doesn't know anything about you, you want to give them a little information. You're a Reiki healer and a hypnotist?
Yes, Lance Baker from Australia. I work with energy healing. Most people understand that in the context of Reiki. I don't just work with it in the Reiki framework. However, I work with a few other energy healing practices like pranic healing and mesmerism. Mesmerism is the energetic start of where hypnosis came from. Hypnosis never used to have words. It was just with the look of a gaze and passes of the hand to put people into trance-like states.
Like Dracula.
Perhaps. I don't go biting people's necks, however. Do not drink anybody's blood, and I do not turn into a bat. So, and I can go out in the sun.
At least the bat thing seems unfortunate, you know? It's probably pretty handy to be able to turn into a bat sometimes.
I'd be pretty stuffed too. My office is like 3 blocks from the beach, one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. So it's it'd be a shame if I couldn't go in the sunlight and
right.
see the beauty of that.
Right, but think of how easy it would be to get to the beach if you were a bat. You could just fly out the window and get there in like 2 minutes. Yes. And
then I use hypnosis as well in the modern context and some very much more fringe sort of aspects other than the traditional sort of trance processes where somebody's eyes are closed and I take them on a guided visual journey talking at them. I more often use hypnosis in a framework of where I do it while the person's actually conscious, and I call out part of their subconscious to communicate with me while this person's awake, either just with a thing called an ideomotor response, where part of their body moves for a yes and a no, and it's uncontrollable to them, and they see it and feel it and are quite bizarre about it. Sometimes I move that to automatic writing or just direct voice, and part of their consciousness talks to me, and the conscious person is usually a little bit surprised at some of the things that come out from that.
Very cool. So I got a question. How did you, as far as energy healing goes, how did you get into? I listened to the first episode of Akasha Talks, which is your podcast, and you also have a website, branchesofhealing.com.
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and let everybody know that if you're interested in Lance's work. But so I listened to the first episode, but obviously most people have not. You want to tell people how you got into Reiki healing and what led you to that path?
Yeah, it was not a fun process, to be honest. I I had a botched up brain surgery, and I woke up from that surgery August 5th, and I had a migraine. And that migraine did not go away, not for a split second, for nearly a decade. It was a little bit over 9.5 years, 24/7.
This was August 5th of what year?
2007, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
No, 2003. It was back.
Okay.
And yeah, I woke up from that surgery with a migraine, and it just didn't go away. The best, like if you've heard of the pain scale, the best I ever felt over that 9.5 years would have been a 3. Most of the time I sat around 5 or 6. The level of what you would call a 10, I had to reassess and label at least a dozen times. It got to what you would call a suicide migraine, where you contemplate that the only way to deal with this is to just finish things. And I luckily, obviously, didn't follow through with those prompts, but that was there. And I went down every path Western medicine had to offer, and got nowhere. And had just given up. I took that as my lot in life, and went along for quite a while with that. And at the beginning of the 9th year of it, why I remember the date so easy is my birthday is August 4th. So on my birthday, the next day was a reminder of, well, it's been 6 years, it's been 7 years, it's been 8 years, it's been 9 years. So I was having my birthday, it was my 33rd birthday, and I was having that, and I made that statement to myself of I can't do this continually. I have to start trying things again. I'm going to open the door again and try everything, no matter how weird, how stupid it seems. I'll do it. I'm going to tick every box I can think of.
Right.
And so I started doing different things that I'd dismissed before. One of them was float tanks. That was interesting. It was good. It was a little bit helpful. And then I met somebody who did Reiki, and I found out about a mate, and his girlfriend did Reiki, but she was nowhere around, so couldn't get that done. And then I bumped into somebody 2 months later who did it, and I thought, well, I was told this would help. I'll give it a crack. I think you're a lunatic, but I'll do it. And I paid the woman $90. I laid on a table. I closed my eyes, like she said, and I imagined pulling money out of my wallet and setting it on fire. I was thinking, this is the biggest rort ever. This woman is sitting in the corner. She's playing with tarot cards. She's reading a book, and I'm just
right.
Like, she's not even touching me. I can't hear her doing anything. This is such a joke.
It's like I feel like I should hear carnival music in here.
And then I was, as you can imagine, of having pain in my head the whole time for so long. I was hyper aware of every sensation around my head.
Right. Yeah.
I felt like something came out of my head at the where the wound was on the side of my head. And she had my attention big time. I was like, well, this is not placebo, because I'm thinking this is a scam. And
right.
I just experienced something. This shit's real.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
I booked again to go back to see her again. I felt a little bit better, not much. Like it didn't solve anything.
Right.
I probably dropped half a point on the pain scale from that, and I slept a little bit better that night. But I was curious to see what would happen. So I went a few times. It was interesting. And because I've been doing that float tank thing, I Googled had a meditation class, Newcastle, this Saturday. And normally if you do that, like the Newcastle, Australia will have things that come up. There's like 3 Buddhist centers here that always have meditation things on. There's people like myself that run things like that. And then there's Newcastle, UK, that has all the same sort of things, like You can't Google meditation in Newcastle and not have things come up. No meditation thing came up, but a Reiki 1 class did. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll check that out. It said you could do it on yourself, and I didn't think you could. So I went along, and I didn't expect much. I thought, well, I'll be doing it in between when this other woman does things, and it might give me an extra half a point off that pain scale. If I could live at a 3 on that pain scale, that was my dream.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
And I went, and they connected me to this Reiki energy, and I was blown away by that feeling within my hands. It just amazed me. And I was just playing with it. And I don't know when it was, somewhere in the first week and a half or so, I noticed, I remember the moment I was walking out of like my man cave thing, ready to go to work. And I was 1 foot out in the lawn and 1 foot in the room, pulling the door shut behind me. And I was like, I don't have a migraine. It's not there.
Huh.
Was it there when I woke up? I don't remember. And it was gone. And I kept assuming, well, this is going to come back. And it didn't.
How long had you been performing Reiki on yourself at that point?
Well, I hadn't really done much on myself. I'd done maybe a couple of hours into that week or so on myself. Most of the time I was just practicing basic things like an energy ball. I did some sessions on some other people.
Okay. So not actually like applying the Reiki to your head, just more practicing with the energy ball, as you said.
Yeah. I remember the first night I did about half hour on my head myself. And then I stopped and I was like, well, I need to practice and get good at actually doing this first. And I've got plenty of time to heal myself.
Right.
And yeah, I wasn't expecting anything like what I got out of it. So Reiki got my attention big time from that.
Yeah, I can imagine so. After 9.5 years of a persistent migraine, and then all of a sudden, like, and you said you couldn't even remember when it had gone.
No, it just was like, it just faded out to that point where it wasn't there anymore. And so I didn't notice the moment it disappeared. I wish I could. Like I'd celebrate that day every year. So yeah, now at the moment I celebrate the day that I did that class, and I actually celebrate that the day that it started, because from going through that decade of hell, essentially, I now actually have a life that's way better than I ever could have imagined, with the impact I get to make in other people's lives, with creating healing with them, the understanding I have of consciousness, and then just the fun, weird experiences that come from working with consciousness and energy. I'm actually happy for going through all of that stuff to have the gift of what life now is. I never thought I'd say those things, but I'm at that point now.
Yeah, no, I get that, man. I was a heroin junkie for 6 years and got clean. So like, not the same thing, but like I it's one of those things where I wouldn't change my past. Like I'm happy I went through that horrible experience to be on the other side of it and doing what I'm doing now. Like I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't had that experience. So I totally get what you're saying with that. Yeah.
The amount of times I played with the fantasy of time travel, if I could have a DeLorean, if I could do this or that, whatever to time travel, that would be the one thing I would go back and change and make sure I corrected. And I don't have that fantasy anymore. Now I'd be like, I wouldn't want to mess with the past so that I could still have the current I have now.
Right. Now, you said one thing a little earlier on that kind of grabbed my interest. You said when you went to the Reiki, the class you went to, they connected you with the energy. What did you mean by that?
Well, Reiki, it's not something you learn. Well, you learn how to use it, but it's not something you learn how to do, essentially. It's passed on by an attunement. So somebody a Reiki Master has the ability to connect into your energy field and open you up to a connection to universal healing energy that you can then channel through. So I went from not knowing how to do anything to it to feeling energy in my hands instantly, like in the space of 1 minute I couldn't do it, the next minute I could. And ever since then I can feel a magnetic pulse, buzz, a tingle in my hands, and it can be palpable, like I can have that much magnetic energy between me and somebody else that I cannot actually physically touch them, like when you've got two strong repelling magnets and you try and push them together and you get that bounce back. That feeling.
Okay. Yeah, I've had Reiki done to me, but I obviously don't know how to harness that energy myself.
Well, at the start of this whole COVID thing, I created an online thing people can do for free. It's on my website.
Oh, really?
Where it's a 10-minute meditation you listen to, and if you have that open, accepting attitude to be connected to healing energy, you will be. And there's like a 2 10-minute class things either side where I explain how to use it. And I did a podcast episode that's also on that same page that's about a 40-minute distance healing class that you can use those skills to heal somebody on the other side of the world if you wanted to.
And people are able to access all of that through branchesofhealing.com.au?
Yes, branchesofhealing.com.au/attunement. But it's just in the menu, Reiki Attunement meditation.
Cool. That's awesome, man. So how long have you been like practicing Reiki and hypnosis and mesmerism on a quote unquote professional basis?
I went full time 5 years ago, I think it was.
How was that? How was the transition into that? What were you doing before that?
Before that, I managed sales teams in the flooring industry, like carpet and tiles and timber.
Oh man, that sounds really fun.
Yeah, it was. It was to say how terrible that sort of life is. The Rick and Morty show.
Oh yeah. You went back to the carpet store, Morty?
Yeah. He had brain damage and then he went back to the carpet store.
Right. He
It
was cancer. Cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. That show just laughed at me. I didn't have brain cancer. I had brain surgery and I went back to fucking carpet.
Oh geez.
So yeah, I'm Morty apparently. It's a very very different thing to what I did. Except some of the sales trainings that I did, in hindsight, I can see were NLP trainings, which is hypnosis adjunct sort of.
Really?
Thing. Yes.
Really, that's interesting. So, like some of your sales trainings were hypnosis training. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. They weren't framed as hypnosis trainings.
Right. Obviously, you can't say that.
No, from doing hypnosis trainings and NLP things now, I'm like,
like neuro-linguistic programming.
I know
for people who don't know what NLP.
This is that sales tool they taught me years ago. Oh, that guy was a life and business coach. That's an NLP thing.
Yeah. For everybody who doesn't know what NLP means, that's neuro-linguistic programming, which is the basis of all advertising. It's what all the pickup artists use and stuff.
Yes.
Ever read any of those guys' books? I've never read any of them, but I've seen them out there. But yeah, that's all neuro-linguistic programming, all that negging and bullshit I've heard about.
Yeah. It's transparent enough now that people know they're being NLP'd most of the time, and they walk away feeling really dirty. So it's not usually the most beneficial thing to even attempt to use. You'll be caught out fairly easy.
Yeah, it doesn't work too well, at least in that department these days, I guess.
No.
There's been too much exposure out there. Too many people know.
Yeah, exactly.
And thank God for that, because those dudes are creepy, man.
Yeah. now I've actually helped some clients who have had that being used on them, and heard some pretty nasty stories of people who've fallen for some rough stuff from that sort of thing.
So what made you decide to start doing Reiki and hypnosis and the blanket of what you do professionally? What spawned that idea? Did you just get tired of selling carpet, Morty?
No. When I first did Reiki, it was in secret. The only person who knew about it was my wife at the time. And
right. Well, you're not gonna go telling your neighbors about it.
No. And then
think you're a fucking loon.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they said, well, to lock this skill in, you got to practice on some other people. So I had to tell some people to have some people to practice on. So I did that, and then I delved into it some more, and I had a lot of weird and interesting experiences, and I enjoyed doing it. And the float tank center that I was going to, that guy, he moved into a bigger center, and he was going to get massage people to work for me. I was like, I'd like to practice this a little bit more. Could I do it from here one evening a week? And he said, like, yeah, that's awesome. And so I went in there and did it one day a week. It was just like an avenue that I could practice better and have people who wanted it, rather than my friends who thought I was a lunatic but would entertain me to lie down and let me wave my hands around above them. And the first paying client I had, she came in on two crutches. She'd been in a car accident, had a shattered hip. And I didn't even notice the next week when I come back, she was booked in again. She only came in with one crutch. I didn't click. I did click when she walked out carrying that crutch.
Oh, wow.
I was like, this had a big impact for me, but that moment really drummed in, this has a big impact for other people. Now, with that woman, her hip was still shattered. I'm not Jesus. I didn't like completely heal this woman just by putting my hands over for an hour. It made it so she was able to walk. She felt great. The muscles were great. The hip was still shattered. She still had to get a hip replacement. It took months for that to happen, but it made it so that she could get through each week. But in that moment, I'll be honest, I was like, holy shit, this is a miracle.
Right.
So
weird question. Do you think Jesus was a master Reiki healer?
Essentially, yeah, it's the same things. I actually studied theology years ago, and everything they talk about with the Holy Spirit, it's the same sort of thing as energy healing.
Right. Yeah.
It's using a godlike energy to heal people, and sometimes it opens up the gift of prophecy, like the Bible says, and some people, like, their third eye sort of thing awakens, and their intuition opens, and they say things that end up happening. Opens up the gift of leadership. It's just the parallels are the same. He anointed his disciples with that power and just turned it on for them. It's the same process essentially, but in a very different framework. Obviously, I don't make anybody do anything in any religious context to do Reiki. You don't have to believe in God to do it. I've had atheists learn off me. I've had Muslims, Christians, Buddhists. I've had a couple of Satanists. It's still worked on all spectrums of people. It's just whatever. As long as you trust in an ability for something else to be there, I guess you don't have to believe in anything. You'll feel it and you'll know there's something else there.
Right. It's more of a faith than anything else.
Yeah,
and I don't mean faith in the religious sense.
No. Well, the thing I've noticed, the people who like that faith element, how much you trust in the process amplifies how well you can do the process.
Right.
If somebody's not trusting in it, it can't flow as well through them. The more they open up to that trust and understanding of this can just do things, then it can just do things.
Yeah, I mean, how could it work if they don't believe what they're doing? Then how can that energy flow freely through them? You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how does energy work, or not, how does the Reiki energy work on a molecular level? I wonder. It's just a question. I just thought of that while you were talking. Because the manipulation of the energy seems. I mean, it's obviously very foreign to to us, because in the culture we live in, Western culture, all that stuff is kind of pushed to the back, and people don't, people don't believe in that kind of thing anymore. But whereas this used to be commonplace, now it's, more of a niche thing.
Yes.
And we're all people that do believe in it. We're all labeled, insane or hokey or,
Yeah.
something.
I always think people are insane with it, but I can't think I'm insane when I actually don't have pain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have experience with it working for you, and you have experience with it working through you.
Yeah.
So
you've obviously seen a cell under a microscope. I'm presuming everybody's seen an image of that, right? Did you do biology in high school or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I learned that stuff when I was in I don't know, probably a primary school.
So from looking at everything that close, technically we shouldn't be solid. Like there's more space in between those cells than there is physical stuff. Like even like there's that big distance between each of the cell walls. They're generally not compacted right against one another. And then inside that cell, the space of the nucleus and all the atoms and everything inside of there, like as small as you get, the smaller you get, the more space is there.
Right, exactly.
So what's that space? It's energy. So that's more what your healing is amplifying the space in between the physical. And then that physical can feed off that energy to create the material world.
Right. Yeah. Because energy, matter only exists. It only exists in wave form until observed. They've figured that out.
Exactly. Yeah. And so this is just a wave form coming through.
Matter itself is energy, because energy can only be expressed in wave form.
Yeah. The only way I've done a scientific test to show what this sort of thing does is I had this weird experience where somebody like loaned me this $1,000 water testing kit for a couple of weeks, and I put it in a glass of water. And I gave energy to this water. So you can charge water up and give it healing energy. And it tastes different. It feels a little thicker. It's like not quite the viscosity of milk, but you know how different liquids feel thicker than others.
Right.
Water will feel thicker. And if it's like filthy chlorinated tap water, it doesn't taste like tap water anymore. After you've energized it, it tastes like filtered, bottled spring water. And I was like, well, that's curious that it does that, but how can I prove that it's not just some placebo effect or something like that? And I randomly met this guy, and he didn't know me from Vampirism, and he gave me this equipment to play with. And I played with it, and I watched as I gave this water energy, the pH level dropped and the water became more alkaline. The temperature rose. So there was a physical, tangible difference of what was happening with that. But other than that, all of my, the only way I could prove it is anecdotal, like the woman carried her crutches out and I watched that happen, and it couldn't have happened otherwise. My brain does not hurt every second of the day anymore. these kind of things are the only ways I can
Right.
a scientific explanation of what's going on. I don't have billion-dollar scientific equipment to prove what happens on a cellular level, but that's my understanding of what my comprehension of it can be.
Do you think that because you do dabble with hypnosis, mesmerism, and NLP, that a lot of the success of the Reiki is mere suggestion, and not to discount it at all, but do you think that could be the case?
I was thinking about this today. I'm reading a book from Hippolyte Bernheim. He's the guy who was Sigmund Freud's mentor, and he taught him hypnosis before he'd come up with his version of psychotherapy. And and this guy was all about the suggestion, and he believed that the mesmerist, it was just the suggestion of the healing, not the actual energetic aspect. And occasionally I think that could be the case, but most of the time it's not, and it can't be. Like, I walked in with the suggestion that I was going to prove this woman wrong.
Right.
And it didn't happen. And I can move my hand over somebody when their eyes are closed and they have no idea where I am, and the muscles twitch underneath where my hand is. That's not a suggestion because they don't know.
Yeah, that's an actual physiological response.
Yeah, exactly. There's too many things like that happen. There's a video I have on YouTube where I'm doing mesmerism, where I just gaze into this woman's eyes and she passes out and goes into a trance. And then I move the energy around. I turn her head one way and then I turn it back. And her eyes are closed. She has no idea what I'm doing. So that can't be suggestion.
Right.
It could have been a perceived pre-suggestion that she thought, well, he's looking into my eyes, I'm going to go into trance, or go into trance. That bit I could have talked myself into thinking was a suggestion, but the turning the head, I can't.
Right. So, have you seen any videos of? Okay, first of all, I got a question. Where you said there's a video of that? Where can we find that at? Because I would like to see that.
That's on my podcast. The video is added under a mesmerism episode I did, I think, on episode 20, maybe. It's the only one I've got on mesmerism there, so it's pretty easy. It's also just on the Akasha Talks YouTube channel.
Okay, cool.
Mesmerism in action, I think, just as a keyword search on YouTube will show it.
Right. Okay. Are you familiar with like evangelical faith healers?
Yes. The hypnotists. I could be wrong, but the hypnotists. But some of what they do, if they could be using that Holy Spirit to do the energetic healing of that, but a lot of what they do definitely is a suggestion. But I haven't been in the room with them to prove if there's anything energetic happening. I dare say there has been quite a few over the years of people who have done that, but a lot of the evangelical people are very fake.
Yeah, no, definitely that.
They're
entertaining, though.
I'm not going to discount all. So yeah, that.
Yeah. Like I said, they're entertaining, though. They're pretty polarizing.
Yeah. I where was it? There was somebody I was talking to, or something I was reading not long ago. Was talking about a evangelical minister had come to their hypnosis class, and he'd said, "Oh, this is what I do. I didn't realize it was hypnosis." Yeah.
He didn't realize.
He didn't realize. No, he's like, this is what I was shown to do as a part of my preaching.
Oh wow, that's funny.
So
we're talking about preachers, and I brought up Jesus earlier and his potentially being a master Reiki healer. And you said something like along the lines that it opens up your consciousness when you're in those higher energy states and may have some effect on your third eye.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, what do you know about, the third eye and the pineal gland?
It's like your inner eye of how you can. Most people see it in the context of seeing things. For me, it doesn't work that I see things. Occasionally, I will see something that's not physical, but that's extremely rare for me. Some people have that gift that they can see auras and spirits and whatever. And sometimes it could be delusional, sometimes it could be real. But for me, the way it opened up was more I hear things. And when it started, it was more like, it was just my own internal voice. It didn't sound any different than my consciousness, but the messages were different to what it was. So a couple of weeks after I'd started doing Reiki, maybe 3 weeks after, I woke up in the morning and I just had this voice inside that sounded like my voice on repeat telling me to call, we'll call the person Jill to save privacy with this. Call Jill, 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 call Jill. And I just shut up by going, okay, I'll call Jill tonight. That seems a little bit bizarre though, because I never call Jill. The last time I'd called her would have been 5 years before for her birthday. We communicate through text and email, and I had communicated with her with email like a week before and told her how that migraine had gone. And she'd known all along that. She'd been with me to some doctor's appointments and stuff like that. So she knew the pain and suffering I'd been through, and she'd always told me that you'll find something one day, maybe. And I generally told her I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, so I put that thought away, and then I'm in the shower, and it starts again. Call Jill, call Jill, call Jill, call Jill, call Jill. I'm like, Christ, I'll call her at lunchtime. And it shuts up again. And I finish getting ready, and I get in the car, and I drive out of the driveway to go to work, and call Jill, call Jill, call Jill, call Jill. I'm like, this is just sending me insane. This won't stop. So I put my Bluetooth speaker on. I called Jill. Got a voicemail. Hi, Jill. It's Lance. I had this nagging thought since I woke up. I need to call you, so I'm calling you. Just call me back so I don't have to listen to this thought all day. And I get a few blocks away, and I get a ding on my phone, and let's pretend I stopped the car to read the message to see that she said, thanks for that. I needed to hear that. I'm actually going to bed right now. I'll speak to you later. I was like, okay, she must have worked night shift or something. Fair enough. Yeah. Easy. Don't have to worry about that. I go to work. Did my job. Normally, as I said, I was in a management role. Normally I worked later than finishing early, but I just had this strong prompt a little bit before 3 o'clock to finish up early. Have a couple of hour early mark. It's time to go home. I was like, yeah, you know what? I will. Say goodbye to everybody. The second I crossed the threshold of those doors to leave the building, the phone started ringing. It was Jill. And Jill told me that she had been up all night looking for excuses to live, had called Lifeline and Beyond Blue and all the suicide helplines, and hadn't come up with something that was a reason for maintaining going on, and was about to act when her phone rang in the morning with me. And her first thought when she seen my name was how she told me for years that I would find a way. And she remembered our last email where I said, I found my way, my friend. She had that thought then that, well, maybe there is hope. And she's still alive today. Now, there's no way I could have known to do that. It wasn't obviously my voice. It sounded like my voice.
Yeah.
Something different. And the amount of things like that happened after then just kept snowballing. I just have these impulses to do things, and they pay off. Well, I have these impulses to call people, and it makes a big difference in their life. And then I feel stuff that's not there. Some people have that psychic sense when their third eye opens, and they smell things that are not there or taste things that are not there as signals of some thing extra.
Right. I've actually got a kind of a similar story. When I was 20 years old. Okay. And I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we're sleeping, and out of a sound sleep, I wake up, and like the first thought in my head is, call your dad, 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 call your dad. Like over and over and over and over and over again, just like you were saying, call Jill, call Jill, call Jill. Same thing, same exact thing. So I didn't put it off though. I immediately was like, I wouldn't be thinking this if I didn't need to call for some reason. So I called. My stepmother answered the phone, and she said he just passed away 5 minutes ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
So I definitely believe what you're saying, man, because I've got a very similar story. Obviously, not a suicide attempt or a planned suicide attempt or giving up of hope or anything of that nature, but
sometimes it's
some energy told me to call and you know, like right at that time. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
you can't refute that shit.
You hear that happen all the time, and whether that's just part of you trying to reach out to him, or his spirit left his body and the first thing he did was, I'm going to go check in on Justin, and you just sensed him there and went, we need to call down.
Yeah.
Who knows? But sometimes, like the impulses I get of a psychic awareness is something so simple as take your headphones. Okay, I'll take my headphones, and then I find myself stranded somewhere for an hour or two, and I can listen to a podcast and entertain myself and do something productive with that time. And I think I'm super glad I bought my headphones today. It doesn't really make a big impact in my life. It's next to nothing, but it's something.
I don't know though, because you said you could listen to podcasts and use your time wisely, and who knows, maybe that day you learned something that you wouldn't have learned had you not had your headphones. And everything radiates out. Every action has a ripple of energy that comes out from it. So it's like the butterfly effect.
Exactly. Yeah.
So who can say?
That's it.
Back to the third eye. Have you ever experimented with psychedelics?
I have not, because of the thing that was with my brain. That sort of stuff is a gray area of if it could do some serious damage to me. So I've just left that as a.
Yeah, I can understand that. Why put yourself back in that position? Yeah.
I remember years ago reading something very direct about like mushrooms, and what I had going on were a dangerous cocktail. So it's like, well, you know what? No high is worth that risk. I'll just leave that be.
Right. Well, it's not so much a high as a shifting of consciousness, in my opinion. But I've actually got a friend of mine that has been experiencing migraine for years, like debilitating, just as you were, like really, really bad migraines. Now they're not constant, but they're pretty much, he only has a few days here and there of respite, and it could be one of those things. I haven't really talked to him in depth about it, but it could be one of those things like it was with yours, where he's just operating it at a lower level on the pain scale and it's not completely gone.
Yeah.
But but for him, that's manageable. So when I see him, he's always at that level. That could be. I'll have to ask him about that. But he's had some success using psilocybin mushrooms.
Yeah, that can be
with the migraines.
For cluster migraines. LSD is supposed to be amazing. There's been hundreds of clinical trials with cluster migraines and LSD, but I've heard of some with migraines for magic mushrooms as well.
Right. Yeah, I'll have to ask him about that, and I'll get back to you though, because if he is experiencing the pain 24/7, or even if it's not 24/7, I might have to connect him with someone that does Reiki and see if we can get him fixed up. He won't believe it. He won't believe it at first. I'll have to be like, look, I'll have to be like, it's a real thing. Like, have some faith, man.
Yeah, I just filled out some people first. Everybody is different with how great they can do Reiki or how much energy can channel through them. So go check some people out, and if you feel something, enjoy the experience or whatever, then connect them. Don't close that door by sending them to somebody who has no idea what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, you don't want somebody that just read a book yesterday and they're like, I know Reiki now.
Yeah, I received Reiki off a guy who has been a Reiki master for somewhere between 30 and 40 years, who has a great name around the world. And I had a session off him and I felt nothing. He had a little timer on his belt that buzzed to tell him to move his hands each 5 minutes. So even somebody who's been doing it a long time can sometimes not be any good.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah. One of the most potent students I've had that's learned it, she was that potent from day one.
Really?
Yeah. And this goes back to that. The faith you have in it proves how trusting, how much it flows. She was a devout Muslim, and she just just said, well, I'm just channeling God. So the faith that I have in God is what's coming through me.
Well, I feel like the pineal gland is maybe like the human body is essentially an antenna, and the pineal gland is the antenna for consciousness. So yeah. I think that depending on how open your third eye is, for whatever reason, perhaps you're able to channel this energy more through you than people who are more closed off, so to say.
Perhaps. I honestly don't think my third eye would have been all that open, clean. My pineal gland, when I first started this, and I was good enough to heal that migraine straight away.
Right.
So
I'm also an insane person,
but I do think that's definitely connected with our consciousness and openness to connect to the other realms that are adjacent to what we are able to see and feel in normal everyday consciousness.
Right. Do you believe in God or some sort of divine unifying force?
Yes. Yeah. Not the same way that I did when I was a child, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I think I have a very close relationship with the divine from what I feel and what I experience. And yeah.
What do you think? What do you think that thing is? Do you think it's just an energy? Do you think it's just an energy field, or?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard to say. What is God? What is the nature of God? That's such a hard question.
Yeah.
I almost want to apologize for asking that.
Just ask me to tell the meaning of life while I'm at it. Hey.
That's my next question.
Akasha Talks is the name of my podcast, and Akasha is the name I use for energy, for what life is, and it's anything living gives off that Akashic energy. So if it's in every living thing and it's what animates life, then that's the God spark that makes life happen. That's my view, is that all pervasive consciousness is everywhere, and we all have our own connection to the divine. It's how much we're open to allowing that to flow through us. And
Right.
That's we reckon it gets its own unique flavor. Like the energy of that sits in me is mixed with the energy of what I am in the land around me, and that's going to be different to the energy in you and the land that you stand on as well. But there's a unique part of that, kind of like every human has blood in their body,
Right.
but they can do a blood test and my blood will look different under a microscope to yours.
Right.
That
Well,
key.
do you feel that?
God.
Do you feel that it's all the same energy and that like everything just vibrates at a different frequency?
Not quite. Somewhat. Yes and no. There's.
Well, let's talk about that.
Well, in Yellow Chinese Emperor's Book of Healing, the oldest healing book that there is, they talk about 32 different kinds of qi, which is energy, Akasha. And I'd always wondered, because I could feel different frequencies of energy, but you can't compare every different frequency to every different frequency. It's just it's something I thought of doing, but I thought that's a hell of an experiment to try and see if I can identify down to just 32 different frequencies and don't fine tune it that much. But I was curious about it, and I couldn't find much of an answer on it. And I was at a hypnosis training where there was a Chinese medicine guy there who had a vast knowledge, really intelligent man. We were at a German pub having lunch and some beers, obviously, and we each had a stein of beer, and there was a water jug on the table, and waiting for our meals. And I popped that question out of, what's the difference between different kinds of energy? Is there just one? Is there 32? Is it just a frequency difference? What? And he said, well, really, there's 1 and 31 different kinds of energy, not 32. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. What do you mean? He goes, well, we've got our unique flavor. So like, you just have energy you were born with that's part of your soul. And then there's 31 other kinds of universal energy that you can tap into, like mountain energy and river energy and lake energy and so on and so forth. And he said, let's just say this beer, and he picked up his stein of beer, is your personal energy. And then he had a skull and drank a heap. He set the beer back down the table. He goes, and then you've just used some energy, and your glass is less full. And he picked up the jug of water from the table and filled it up with a little bit of water back to the level it was at before he sculled his first drink. And now his beer was full again, but it was slightly less vibrant in its color.
Right.
And he drank it, and he goes, and it's full with this universal energy. It's still my beer, still a beverage. I can still drink it. Doesn't taste too bad at the moment. And then we talked on about other things, and he drank the rest of his beer till it was down to about a mouthful left. And because we all had beers, no one had touched the water jug, let's be honest. He grabbed the water jug and he filled that stein all the way back up. And he said, remember what we'll talk about with that energy. Now look what it's like when I've just filled it up after I've used so much of my personal energy. And it was the cloudiest, most disgusting water ever. And he actually had a drink out of it. And he's like, it doesn't taste much like beer anymore. Do you want some? And I was like, no, thank you. But we've got that life force that is unique to us. And when we've used that, that's it. But we can keep topping that up and use a more and more diluted version of our energy as we go. Or we can just tap into that universal energy and use that without touching our own and keep our own reserves. Like major incidents in your life, you use your own energy at different points. And then that's the same sort of situation for each of those other 31, like they're unique parts of consciousness that are out there. And some of those energies just live for a short time. Humans are extremely short time. They're alive when you look at the grand scheme of things compared to a mountain that is just there for eons, a river, a lake that's there forever. And that's the energy we've got access to on this earth. What's the difference when you go planetary of what's the energy of Jupiter or Mars or Saturn and so on, and then that's just our solar system. What else is there in the universe of different energies out there that is a personal energy to some other part of consciousness?
Yeah. Man, wow. I know, I never really thought about it like that. Like depleting your own personal energy and then having to replace it with other forms of energy. Yeah, dilutes the soul almost.
Just washes out. The deleting the soul is letting people just take your energy. And different people, when you're around them, they do take your energy. I'm sure.
For sure.
In
your
junkie
definitely.
days, you had people taking your energy left, right, and center. The heroin itself would have been stealing from your life force.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, and I've had quite a few clients who have had drug abuse over the years, more so when it's meth based things like ice and stuff like that, where other energies have attached to them and are draining them, and some of the interactions I've had, people have psychosis from these drugs, and I've cleared it when it's seemed it could be a part of their consciousness has come up with that story in that delusional drug state of something, but from all perceptions, it's like they had spirit attachment, and the voices they heard were external spirits because they left like external spirits when I engaged in conversation with them in a hypnotic fashion. They left.
Weird. That's a weird dark energy when you get into addiction.
It is, yeah. And I don't know. Consciousness can be powerful. We can create stories to create excuses for problems in our life on an unconscious level, and it could just be that. But it sometimes very much seems like, and I at least go down that route because it works, to use that model of, well, let's imagine this is true and it is a spirit possession, and let's treat it like an exorcism in a sense, and get that entity to leave, and it does. So I think things do feed off people in those sort of states and drain their energy.
Yeah, for sure, man. And there's definitely energy vampires out there too. People that just feed on your energy.
Yeah. Narcissists just love attention. They don't care if it's angry energy or loving energy. They just want to steal your energy. It's interesting though how a narcissist can work like that, and on a conscious level, they have no idea they're doing energy work. They're not physically controlling that ability to steal energy. They just are unconsciously stealing energy. It's interesting. I don't see many people healing by accident just by having a positive vibe towards people. but you see people vampiring and stealing energy. It's curious.
I don't even think they have to be narcissists. I think depression can trigger that a lot too, because, especially if you're depressed and you're actually just vocal about it. If, you don't bottle it up like most people do. If you don't hold back with your feelings and your emotions, and you actually tell someone, you say, hey, I'm going through a hard time and these are the reasons. And it's not about anything other than I'm just having this hard time. That can be very depleting for the other person, but it's not a conscious decision you're making.
No. And yes, that definitely can be the case.
Yeah. So I wonder if depression is some sort of disease of the energy. If it's almost like a chi disease.
No, from the work I do with hypnosis, I use it's a parts therapy approach. We have different parts to our consciousness, where there's part of your consciousness that's a podcaster. There's part of your consciousness that loves drugs, even though you don't still engage in that. That's part of who you have been and who you are. There's part of you who loves to just have fun and be a nice guy. There's a part of you who wants to be in a relationship with somebody. There's different aspects to our personality, and they get in conflicts with different things. And sometimes we can just have a part of our personality that's just depressed from some sort of trauma and just trapped in this reality tunnel of repeating a cycle of talking about this problem, whether it's an abuse they had when they're a child, their job sucks, nobody loves them, they a terrible person, whatever the story is.
Insert reason here. Yeah.
That part of their consciousness is just turned into the energy drain within inside them and just spiraling out of control in this story that it doesn't know how to get out of. And so I engage in conversation with that part and connect it to that external story of helping it find a reason to be joyful again, to let go of the guilt, the shame, the blame, the doubt, the remorse of whatever the issue was, help it to realize they're safe now. If it was that different situation, if they were abused years ago, but they've cut that person out of their life and that person's dead now, then they don't need to constantly stuck in the situation.
Exactly. They're living in the narrative that they created for themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
And not in the reality of the situation.
Yeah. And that's more what I find depression is like, but it can become like a thought form in their energy field that does sit around like an energy, but even if you clear that energetically, it starts to recreate if you don't clear it from their consciousness to stop it from being a thought.
Right. Yeah, we have to figure out a better way of clearing those things from consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. How soon is this episode going out?
I'm probably maybe in a week or two.
Okay. I'm doing a talk at the Zurich Hypnosis conference in 2 weeks' time, where I teach people for free how to do self-hypnosis. Okay. So I'll send you a link to that to put in the show notes. The people can try and play and have it talk to part of their consciousness. So it's a very different kind of self-hypnosis. You're not going to be in a trance. You're just going to engage in conversation with different parts of your consciousness and find out what's going on the inside. I think that's going to be live for a couple of months afterwards, that people can still download for free anyway.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in the notes of the episode. And you said it's going to be in Zurich?
Yeah, it's the 8th annual Zurich Hypnosis Conference. And because of COVID this year, it's just online rather than in person.
Right, obviously, yeah.
Since most of the guests can't travel and their restrictions are tight for large amounts of people in a room, as the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's probably not a good idea right now.
No.
How are things down where you're at?
Good here. In my town, things are pretty much back to normal, except some people are wearing masks and such. People are washing their hands more. In Melbourne, the next state down at the bottom of Australia, they're in full lockdown sort of thing still. But most of the country's back to some kind of normalcy.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in Florida, so we're just pretty much back to normal here.
Yeah. I've heard you guys have had a huge influx of New Yorkers.
Oh yeah. We got a huge influx of, I'm sure, New Yorkers, Californians, all of the, probably some people from Illinois and the Chicago area, anywhere that there's, the larger cities, like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, they were affected pretty badly. So I hear. I don't know. I haven't been there. Don't want to go there. I'll stay blissfully in Florida.
This sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Well, we had a lot of cases here too, but I think they're maybe managing it a little better here because there's not as much population. I'm not sure of the reasons why, but things are, it's kind of like you said, it's pretty much back to normal. People are, out and doing whatever. But, there's some people are wearing masks, some aren't. It just depends on where you go and who's there, I guess.
Yeah.
But enough of that. I don't want to talk about that. We've been talking about that since March. So do you follow any kind of particular, do you follow a religion, or are you pretty much an agnostic or an atheist?
Yeah, I follow just my own things. It's more just spirit led now.
I feel that.
The spiritualist movement and an atomist framework would probably be where I would describe where I'm at. So atomist framework is where you're communicating with the consciousness of everything around you, like everything is alive. So in Australia, that's how things were before invasion happened from Europeans. So a traditional custodian of this land had an atomist framework. Like the area I live in is called Newcastle. I live next to a gigantic lake, and the whole huge area is called Awaba, from the traditional name, which means lake. And the energy of the lake is what feeds this whole area, and there's like a spirit of that. And it's the spirit of some trees. There's a spirit within a dog. Like
yeah.
The same sort of consciousness that is a person is not just human. It's in other things, and you can engage with that. And in that spiritualist framework is that there are other spirits around us, like the spirits of ancestors and so on, that you can sense around you sometimes. And
right.
Sometimes
yeah, for sure.
Pick up on their thoughts and their feelings and their experiences, their energy and frequencies. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. More often than not, I find they're fairly helpful, but sometimes some people's shit is not really their shit.
Most of the time, I think. Yeah. I don't even think it's sometimes. I think it's most of the time.
But yeah, that's not really a religious context. That's just more my understanding of the spiritual world. But like I'd said, with that faith connection in that energy of the divine with Akasha, that's where my main thing is, that connection to the Holy Spirit in that sense, but just not with the way white guys have used a book to manipulate people over the last 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So,
For sure. That. Yeah. I got drugged to church a lot when I was a little kid. And, I mean, even at an early age, I was like, this seems like it's got a lot of holes in it.
yeah. If you want to get really weird, I did
I love getting weird, man.
a past life regression on somebody with hypnosis. A woman who is not a Christian. She's very much on not into that sort of thing at all. And
Right.
and she's the Apostle Thomas, Jesus' disciple, a fisherman a couple of thousand years ago. And so I've engaged in conversation with this guy called Thomas, who had this friend, Yahweh, who was the Son of God, who healed people and got nailed to a cross and died, and so on and so forth. And come back from the dead and talked to him on a beach and showed him the holes in his hands. It seems bizarre that comes out of the mouth of somebody who doesn't believe in that sort of stuff, telling different stories. But he was very vocal about not liking Pete, the disciple Peter, who manipulated things and used things and changed things and wrote things that were not exact and just changed the message, where the message was just all about service and love. And then he pointed to my hands and said, and that.
What do you mean by that?
The energy thing that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he.
Wow, that's fucking crazy.
It was profound, and yeah, this guy's just a guy who just loved fishing, but got seen this dude that just had this gift, and he helped him spread his message, because he couldn't not support the guy, but he just mostly fished to support the guy, to help feed him and whatever, and journey with him.
Right.
But he said, but then after he died, he goes, I had a tour, and he took the message in his fishing trips through Asia and stuff like that, and did some form of ministry, but only as a very light, humble way. But like, real or imagined, who knows? Did this woman's consciousness create that? Did I really speak to that guy? The conversation seemed pretty profound.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But whether they were real or not, they got me thinking, and I found it quite interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, that's crazy as shit, man. That's a good story. When did that happen? Like how long ago was that?
It was about 2 years ago.
Did you only have the one session with her, or?
No, I've spoken with him a few times, probably half a dozen.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering, if this was like an ongoing conversation.
This woman does not like seafood at all, cannot handle it. So I did it, and I took him to a restaurant, and he ordered fish, and he ate fish in her body, and like her body can't normally eat fish. And afterwards, she could taste the aftertaste of fish, and was like, "What the hell?" She'd agreed to it beforehand, but she's like, I didn't think of the aftertaste.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, and
so you and the Apostle Thomas have developed a rapport of sorts.
Yeah. I consider him a friend. I've had a couple of beers with him.
You guys should go fishing.
That is definitely on the cards. That's something I am going to do one day.
I can't see why you wouldn't. I know that would be the first thing I would do. Be like, come on, man. we're going fishing.
Yeah. I think he'll be blown away by a motor on a boat rather than a sail. But yes, I live across the road from a lake, and it's
I mean, that's perfect. That seems very serene.
Take him out on the lake and fish.
Yeah, that'd be a good time.
Yeah,
I got to hear about that when you do it.
Yeah.
Let me know when that happens.
Will do.
Because I want that story for sure. Well, shit. Thanks. I really appreciate you being on the show, Lance.
Happy to. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. You want to tell everybody again where they can find you at?
branchesofhealing.com.au. My name's Lance Baker. If you just are curious and want to have a chat, they can find me on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. I don't hide, or you can look up my email on my website and send me a message. The therapies I do, I can do healing by distance, and I use Zoom all the time to do hypnosis. I have clients all around the world, so if somebody has something they feel like they'd like some change with, and they feel connected after listening to this, I'm more than happy to have a chat to see if there's something I can help them with. Like you mentioned, I've got a podcast, Akasha Talks. I'm not super regular with that. I'm extremely busy, so about once a month I put an episode out now. But there's a good backlog of 26 or 27 episodes you can listen to about consciousness of energy and hypnosis and different interesting things. And that attunement video, I'll give you the link for that as well, so it can just be in your show notes that they can watch that. If they're curious about connecting to Reiki for free, they can. Or that,
awesome.
Or the hypnosis conference to get the self-hypnosis for free as well.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, man.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Lance Baker for being on the show, and thank all of you for listening. If you do have the time, please rate and review the show. I really appreciate all of you listening, and be on the lookout for a lot of new episodes because I've got a lot of stuff lined up. Remember to meditate, and remember to drink plenty of water. Namaste.
Chaos is beautiful.